As soon as I see Mr. Tuttle and Mr. Grover's cameras on, we'll get this meeting started. So we're getting close. Mr. Tuttle, Mr. Grover, are you present? There you are, Dave. We just came out of closed session, so maybe taking a quick break. So we're real close, folks. All right, everybody, let's get started. Thank you very much for tonight, joining us tonight for our April 12th regular council meeting. We did already open the meeting and then immediately close down to to closed session. So I'm reconvening the meeting to open session, and if we can, all stand for Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Reporting out from closed session, we had no reportable actions from closed session. So at this point, we will move to our approval of the agenda. Are there any substantive changes to the agenda that councilors wish to make? And I think I only have one page here. Yes, I'm seeing everybody. Any public comment on tonight's agenda?
I have one. Can you hear me?
Yes, is that Elaine?
Yes, it is. Okay, this is Elaine Weinweb from West Haven, and as I hope you already know, Caltrans and the Treasuria have started their joint project development team meetings for the proposed new interchange to the Trinidad Rancheria. I was quite surprised that there was not a single representative from the city on this team.
Elaine, if I may, we're just talking about the agenda, so perhaps.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was comments from the floor. My mistake.
No, I just want to make sure we're following procedures. So that will be items from the floor.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment on tonight's agenda? All right. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second it.
First from Grover, second from West. Let's see, Mr. Adams or Mr. Souza, who's acting as city clerk. Can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Mayor. This is Gabe. So we have a motion, Councilmember Grover, seconded by West, to approve the agenda as submitted. We'll start with Councilmember West.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Kelly.
Aye.
And Tuttle.
Yes.
And Mayor Ladwig.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our approval of the minutes. We'll start with the minutes from the February 8th, 2022. Any substantive changes that we need to make to the minutes, both council and general public? All right, seeing or hearing none. How about the minutes from the March 8th regular meeting? Any substantive changes to the March 8th minutes? Hearing and seeing none. Can we have a motion regarding approval of the minutes?
I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion too, that we approve all the minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, first from Grover, second from West. Mr. Adams?
Okay, we got a first from Grover, second for West. We'll start with Councilmember West.
Yes.
Grover,
Yes.
Kelly,
Aye.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Mayor Ladwig.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving right along to council reports and committee assignments. I'm going to follow my screen around. Ms. Kelly, do you have any reports from any of your committee assignments?
I have a very brief one from the Humboldt Waste Management Association meeting on March 10th. I wasn't able to attend, but I did watch the recording. And I'd say the thing that was most relevant was the task force discussion on composting. Since composting is now going to be required by law, there is some work afoot to work with different compost facilities in Humboldt County. There may be a $5 million grant cycle that Cal Recycle had done in the past, giving some $30K per composting site. Supervisor Madrone, I don't know if he's on the call tonight, but he did make an interesting suggestion to create our own composting industry in Humboldt County, including some of the, I guess you'd call it, fish byproducts or fishing byproducts, including that with green waste and food waste and potentially exporting that product as a fertilizer. So I thought that was interesting suggestion. And then there's also some discussion about CRV for those who are interested in that. They're looking at some different options for restoring CRV collection and so forth. And that was it.
Thank you very much. Mr. West.
We're gonna have a kind of exciting thing going on tonight. That's gonna be my HCOG report that Beth Burks, the executive director of HCOG, is going to be talking to us tonight about what HCOG's doing for the county, what they do to in general, and how they affect Trinidad. So just excited that she's going to be here, and she'll be talking as a third item for tonight. And,
Yeah.
Ms. Cox, if you don't mind muting your phone, please, or your computer. Thank you much.
Another thing, we're going to have a Trails Committee meeting next week. So we'll be continuing to discuss various projects for the Trails Committee and next Tuesday.
All right. Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Grover.
I was able to attend the RCA meeting, and I would recommend people to go visit that website. There's a lot going on that that we're transitioning, and getting hooked up with them, you can really do well for yourself, getting rebates and getting your house, talking to their demand side representatives and stuff like that, and tell you how to utilize your own space to the best of your ability. I also wondered, I didn't know if we had anybody from Sunberg or GHD here, or anybody who's working on Edwards. I had a couple pictures. I didn't know if you had them still, Gabe, those pictures I sent. I just, maybe Eli might be able to answer if he's been.
Hey, Dave, I do, and I want to bring him up, but I guess we have a problem on the Zoom call, on the Zoom for people trying to phone in and they're locked out for some reason. So I'm kind of kind of
Okay.
doing two things at once here. Let me see if I can bring them up, but go ahead and keep talking. I'll see if I can bring them up for you.
Okay, well, it was just an issue of one of the drains being plugged down by the lab and stuff like that. And I know they're working on Edwards Street now, and there's a lot going on. I just didn't know if it was something that was known and pertinent to the job, just part of the process, or if it was something that needed to be addressed. But I just wanted to bring it up to show people, and because we got a lot of big stuff going with our stormwater projects, and a lot of changes going on here. So.
Dave, I'm not sure what the answer is to that as far as that
Okay.
section there. However, tomorrow at 2:00, we'll be having a meeting with the contractor and engineer. So if you
Gotcha.
want to meet us, we can bring that up, or you can bring it up, either way.
Yeah, Gabe was telling me that earlier. So yeah, we'll just do that for now. Then Gabe, keep doing what you're doing. Don't have to get those up for people to look at them. I'm sure my description's enough, to clog drain, storm drain looks like so. So that's it for my report. Thanks.
All right, and Mr. Tuttle, you have yet to be added to a committee, so I'm going to bypass you.
Okay.
But you will get some of that tonight towards the end of the meeting. I don't have any. I did attend HTA and Redwood Region Economic Development since our last meeting, but neither has any kind of business to report pertinent to the city. So if the next time I get any of that information, I'll pass it along. At this point, then, we will move on to our staff report. I turn it over to our city manager, Eli Naffa.
Thank you. So included in your packet is the staff report. I mentioned in there regarding the stormwater project that the construction is proceeding. The project is slated to be complete by early June, and construction affects both Underwood, Edwards, and eventually will end in the Harbor Beach parking lot, where the infiltration gallery will be for the stormwater from this draining from all parts of the city. As far as Verizon, the update that I have from them, they have the West Haven Tower, they said was brought into service at the end of last month, so at the end of March. So we are operating now with the West Haven Tower, and we also have the other tower that's off of Quarry Road. In addition to that, I did ask them specifically regarding the Trinidad Head Tower, if that was still online. And the person that I was speaking to did not have that information as to whether or not it was still online. They're the ones who are working on the future decommissioning of the site. So anyway, if residents could let us know if they have Verizon cell service, and if they notice that the service is better or worse, let us know. We want to keep monitoring it until they start decommissioning the cell tower on Trinidad Head. But as of now, with our city phones that use Verizon, we're seeing between 3 to 4 bars. Other than that, I did mention in the staff report that the Trinidad Chamber was having difficulty getting board members. And as a result, they made a plea to the community, and I was very thankful that the community showed up and gave a very good turnout, where 7 new board members have joined the chamber. So they're working on planning a fish fest and also quarterly mixers, and eventually having the Taste of Trinidad. So that'll all be coming in the near future. So that's all I have. If there's any questions or comments, let me know.
I just wanted to pass along as a resident on Underwood affected by this year's stormwater project. I just want to say how much I appreciate the clarity that resulted from you getting involved, Eli, with the notification for water outages. There was some mix-ups about when water would be out, and I'm just grateful that that information now is nice and clear. So I'm hoping other residents on Underwood and down the hill towards the harbor have experienced an increase of knowledge of what's happening with the project, because it's a big deal to lose your water for a day and to know when that's happening. So any other questions or comments for Eli regarding the staff report? All right, seeing none, I will move on to items from the floor. At this time, members of the public may comment on items not appearing on the agenda. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or staff. Council and staff responses will be minimal for non-agenda items. Elaine, I see your hand up, Ms. Thompson. Elaine, I know that you had started your comments, so if you want to bring that to the council's attention, now is your time.
Thank you very much. This is Elaine Weinreb. I live in West Haven. As I hope you know, Caltrans and the Trinidad Rancheria have started their joint project development team meetings for the proposed new interchange to the Trinidad Rancheria. I was quite surprised that there did not seem to be any representation from the city on this team, as the project does have the potential to greatly impact the city in several different ways. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for this opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Elaine. If you don't mind, Elaine, if you could send me the information about when those meetings occur, I'll pass it on to the council.
Excellent.
Ms. Thompson, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I wanted to give a big shout out to Becky Price Hall, our project and grant coordinator. Ms. Price Hall has done an incredible job of researching, writing, and submitting grants for the city of Trinidad. Due to the success of these grants, Trinidad can now look to expand and maintain much needed projects. Becky is an outstanding grant writer, and she is also an effective communicator. Thank you, Becky, and congratulations to Trinidad. Yay.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Cole, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak up. Yesterday I received a bill from the city regarding a coastal development permit that I had processed last year to the tune of $1,500 for some trees that I cut down on my property. And I guess I don't want to agendize like a dispute to this bill, but I would like to ask the council to at least consider the circumstances of my situation and with regard to the greater municipal code. During my hearing for this coastal development permit, the majority of the time was spent discussing, or was spent by the council members, or excuse me, the commissioners, most of the time was spent by them discussing why we were charging me so much money for this permit and discussing a lot of the nuances of the code and not really discussing the details of my specific permit. And meanwhile, I guess the clock was ticking on basically Trevor's time, which I was paying for to have this agendized at the meeting. And I thought that was, and I seemingly had the support of the commissioners as well. It seemed to me that was sort of an inappropriate use of the commissioner's time, Trevor's time, and my time. And now I'm being hit with a large bill. So I just wanted to air my grievance, I guess, more than anything else.
All right, as you know, our responses are limited. So if you wish to file a complaint or wish to appeal any kind of decision, please check with our city planner, city manager on the procedure for that.
Okay, thank you.
Other items from the floor. Ms. Fleschner.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I don't think this is part of your regular agenda. It's about a letter I sent to the council on the transient occupancy tax and consideration for the several groups that have received the city's largesse in the past, and we hope that it will occur again. I sent it to all of you on Saturday, and I know the TOT tax is on tonight's agenda, but that's sort of different from what the letter is that I wrote to you. So may I reiterate my thoughts, or should I just allow you to read the letter and you can respond as needed?
You know what, Patty, the floor is yours for another 2 minutes and 26 seconds. So feel free to do with it what you will.
In the past, starting with Karen Suker and then Dan Berman, we've certain organizations, including the Greater Trinidad Chamber of Commerce, the Trinidad Library, the Trinidad Museum, the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust, and Trinidad Art Night, have received portions of the 12% of the TOT tax. And because we're all public purpose, visitor serving organizations that we hope enhance the cultural and social economic pleasure of the community. So I wrote you a letter. I don't know if it's in your packet, but you should all have it on your email, and I hope at some stage you can respond to it. We asked for retroactive, since the tax has been received by these organizations since 2011, and you've been very generous in the past, so we just hope that this will continue, but nothing was received last year, and we hope that it can be in the budget for this year. Thank you.
I can confirm that at least I got the email. So thank you for that. And we will agendize this for the next council meeting if need be, but we already have it in place for this distribution to occur. So if we need to adapt now that the chamber has dissolved in its formal state, we may bring that back to council, but definitely thank you for your input.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor.
Yep. Other items from the floor. All right, seeing and hearing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. No separate discussion of any of these items occurs. If discussion is requested by any council member, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. A single opportunity for public input on the consent agenda is available. Any councilors wish to remove any of the consent agenda items tonight? Seeing a bunch of heads shaking, I think, or not? No, shaking, not nodding. Any public input on the consent agenda, which consists of the staff activity report, financial statements, and the law enforcement report? All right, seeing none, bringing it back to council for a motion regarding the consent agenda.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
First by West, second by Grover. Mr. Adams, s'il vous plaît.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, to repeat, first by West, seconded by Grover, to accept the consent agenda as submitted. We'll start with Council Member West.
Yes.
Kelly,
Aye.
Tuttle,
Aye.
Grover,
Yes.
and Mayor Ladwig.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes the consent agenda, and now moving on to our discussion action agenda items, starting with number 1, discussion decision regarding resolution 2206, tourist occupancy tax rate reduction. As I am an owner of an STR, Mr. West has agreed to take over as I recuse myself. Take it away, Mr. West.
Thank you. We have had a 10% TOT tax for a long time. It was raised to 12%. And after looking at some of the rules and regulations out of the state of California, we needed to discuss this and bring it back to 8%. That I'll give you a little bit of information. I'm going to let Eli, our city manager, explain this a little bit more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. So I will go through a little bit of the history here. And So recently, it was brought to our attention by the Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast Hotel that the resolution that we passed in the fall to increase the TOT to 12% was not done properly, even though it was followed by, according to our municipal code. So apparently in 1996, when the Prop 218 was passed, it would also apply to the TOT rate. And that needs to go to the voters, which we plan on having in the November election. So as a result, we turned to our law firm, the Mitchell Law Firm, and they looked back and found that the initial ordinance was passed in 1992. Subsequently, in 1993, it was raised from 6% to 8%, which was done fine. But in 1996, that's when the Proposition 218 changed things. And subsequently in 2011, even though Mike Morgan was on the council then, he's brought it to our attention that, he felt that they didn't do it properly. And as a result, that increased to 10%. We are changing it now back to the 8% because that was done properly. So we've retracted the 12%, and then we have attached here a resolution on this agenda item to take it back from the 10% to the 8%. Meanwhile, we've had some questions brought forward by the community and by some of the property managers of the STRs. And we had the following questions, and then the responses were prepared by our law firm. So number one, whether an extension will be given for the remittance of the TOT for the first quarter of 2022. And the answer is the City Municipal Code, Section 3.20.060, provides the time period for reports and remittances of the TOT. And while the tax administrator has the authority to establish shorter reporting periods under this section, there is no authority to extend it. However, from the first quarter of 2022, operators may remit to the city the tax at the actual rate collected or at the rate of 8% to the city manager's memo of March 31st, 2022, while directing the remainder back directly to the taxpayer tourist. Question two, if operators remit the city the actual tax collected at the varying rates of 12% and 10% for the first quarter of 2022, how will the city handle the overpaid tax amounts? The response is any amounts remitted to the city for TOT in excess of the 8% rate for the first quarter of 2022 will be held subject to refund protocol under the TOT ordinance, meaning that the visitors, tourists can request that directly from the city. Number three, if tourists book lodging in advance and the TOT changes between the time of the booking and the actual stay, what is the rate to be charged? And the response is the city code section 3.20.030 provides that TOT is based on the rent charged by the operator at the time the rent is paid. And number four, the question is, it has been expressed that it would be helpful for operators to have sufficient notice when there are TOT rate changes. And the response is city staff will note this and take it into consideration going forward. No additional rate charges are contemplated absent a TOT ordinance amendment as noted above. So like I said, we do have the resolution on the agenda, and we also have two members of our law firm on the line, and I don't know if they wish to add anything before we turn it over to questions.
Just briefly, in addition to the city manager's summary, again, the critical point being is that although the ordinance adopted by the city back in calendar year 1992 and the amendment in 1993, those actions predated Prop 218 and the voter ballot proposition requiring electoral consent to any subsequent tax increases. So that in essence is the conundrum. Although the city did have a ballot and does continue to have a grandfathered ballot ordinance prior to 218 adoption, post 218, any supplemental increases in a general tax of this nature require voter consent and approval, and following the Prop 218 mechanisms for doing that. That stated, it is permissible to have a rate increase mechanism in a ordinance of this nature following Prop 218, but the incremental amounts should be recited in that ordinance with specificity so that the voters in essence approve it and adopt it. And so again, the recommendation we've provided is that the city kind of fundamentally review this long-dated ordinance at this point in time for a number of requisite amendments. Any further, any amendments, substantive amendments to the ordinance and any tax increase changes will be submitted first for council review and approval. And if the council deems it appropriate, those increases will be submitted to the voters and electorate for approval and compliance with Prop 218. So again, in the interim, I think the city to provide TOT operators some guidance has included the answers to those 4 questions submitted by a TOT operator in the staff report. Thank you.
Hey, look, Eli, do you have anything else to add, or should I?
That's all at this moment. So I'll entertain any questions between myself and Russ. And we also have Karen Roebuck from the Mitchell Law Firm on the line too. So any of the 3 of us can help answer questions initially from the council and then later from the public.
Any councilors have a question at this time? Okay. All right, looks like none. So this is open to the public. Does anybody have a question for Eli or Russ?
I have a question.
Yes, John, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jonna Kitchen. I own Trinidad Retreats. I've managed at any one time, I think the most was 11 vacation rentals in this time frame where we were inadvertently charging the 10% for most of that time period when it apparently should have been 8%. My question is in regards to the answer by Councilor Gans with the question of when our guests book a vacation rental for an advanced stay, so they book now, or let's say they booked in November for a stay this June and they paid at November, they were paying 10%. The response is that when the rent is paid, and my conundrum there is that rent is paid in installments. And that policy is going to vary with each STR owner or manager, and it's also going to vary with the different platforms. So VRBO, there's policies, Airbnb has policies, Flipkey, TripAdvisor, Booking.com. There's a lot of moving parts to this challenge. I would really like to see or understand better what that means, because it would be a lot simpler to honor the rates that were stated when the guest booked and signed a contract with the pricing, and have the city hold that, we pay the TOTs at that rate and the city holds the money. And then if whatever comes to pass, I suppose, if tourists try to collect this, or if there's a class action lawsuit, whatever that may look like. But I just want to be upfront and saying it's a challenging situation, and I feel like we got into this mess because a lot of people were asleep at the wheel, unfortunately. I mean, this has gone on for a long time. So I'm still baffled by some of this. So I guess my question is partial payments, partial rent payments, and yeah, how that works and different platforms.
Yeah,
I'll let Russ go.
Okay. Again, the city's ordinance contemplates that you'll collect, the rent will be paid based on the amount charged by the operator at the time the rent is paid. So to the extent you've already collected occupancy tax at the 10% rate, for example, it's already been paid and tendered, it's already been collected. Again, the advice in the staff memorandum is go ahead and collect those amounts, remit to the city. The city will hold those subject to any refund requests that may be submitted by the ultimate taxpayer, which of course is the tourist or transient occupancy tax payor. But again, in terms of what's contemplated is that to the extent you have the ability to go ahead and amend your rate structure and notify any potential rate payer that the rate to be imposed is 8%. Obviously, we'd ask that you proactively do that to avoid any subsequent refund requests. But again, to the extent amounts have been collected already from the taxpayer, what the guidance contemplates is that you can remit that to the city, be held subject to a refund request by the rate or the taxpayer. Karen, if you have any additional thoughts on that, feel free to weigh in.
Thank you, Mr. Gans. No, I don't at this time.
Can I ask a quick follow-up, Mayor Lodwig?
Please go ahead.
Thanks. So I guess then that would be, probably the majority of STR owners and operators are going to be in this position that because the nature of the business is most people book way in advance. So I'm imagining that there's now going to be a mix of tax rates, really that is collected for the remainder of the next probably 2 quarters. I think most people, just to fill in the people sitting in on this meeting, most people, STR operators have booked probably well into the summer, maybe fall, probably not into the winter. So I guess that's just how it's going to roll out. And we will, I can speak for our company. We'll do our very best to proactively make the change to the 8% as best we can, given the nature of these moving parts. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other members of the community that would like to chime in and ask a question?
Hi, it's Mike Morgan. May I speak?
Okay, Mike.
So yeah, Mike Morgan, Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast, Trinidad Tourism and Lodging. And yeah, I brought this to the city after receiving their letter to increase it from 10 to 12%. And I worked with Gabe to research propositions and the constitutionality of doing so, because it's unconstitutional if it's not submitted to the electorate, which is something that needs to be said and is not being said. The critical point being is it has to go to the electors. So I have a disagreement with Russ that you can't just write it in an ordinance still without going to the electorate. So that needs to be really clear. Constitutionally, any increase needs to go to the electorate. So I think that I've made that point clear. As far as contemplating taxes that we're collecting, that's a really misleading statement. We're under penalty to collect what the city tells us to collect, to keep an accounting of it, to report it on a certain date under a penalty of fine. And you can't just decide to say, well, oh, guess what? We're not going to collect it now, and expect us to know what to do. So when you first passed it from 10 to 12, we said we weren't going to comply because we could see it's unconstitutional. So we only charged 10% to guests. at that time, in April, I sent you a letter. None of these letters are included in this packet. That's very distressing. I wrote like 5. And I said, look, I brought this to city's attention at the same time I challenged the constitutionality of its 10 to 12% increase last month. I formally noticed the city and our tax administrator and haven't received any answer. The council did not rescind the unconstitutionally passed city resolution, which increased the hotel tax from 8 to 10%, when it rescinded the 2021 city resolution, raising the same hotel tax rate, the same amount, the same way. So you've gone back and you've said you don't have to collect it, so you've kind of fixed all that. We filed at 8% because we know what you did was unconstitutional. We have to fix this whole mess. So now what we're hearing is differing things. The lawyer says, well, if you collected at 10, pay it to 10 to the city, and the guests can be told to contact the city. Well, that's ridiculous, because how are you going to verify whether the guests stayed, when they stayed, how much they were charged? How are you going to refund it to their credit card, which is probably what they're going to want? You're going to write a check. This is a nightmare you're setting up. So I asked Gabe back in February and submitted that letter saying, you know, what do we do here? What do businesses who collect a city mandated 2% increase from January 1st do with it? Please provide a copy of the council action regarding rescinding the resolution. That's from 10 to 12%. Gabe said, well, if you collected it, just give it back to your guests. And we kind of argued about getting a copy of the resolution, which I finally got. And then it was told for me to wait until the city manager gets back to decide this whole thing. So here we are now. We're looking at, okay, so now we're only charging 8% going forward until the city does the right thing constitutionally and submits it to the electorate. Great. We also have years and years of mispaid taxes to the city that need to be returned to our guests. And stating that it has to go by something in the TOT ordinance without telling us exactly what to do is not enough. So I like for the city, if they need to revisit that and send us a letter explaining what they want us to do, that's great. And cite the ordinance, great. But right now, I see a very critical point being, there's no contemplation, the city had us overcharge and collect and pay city taxes for a decade under penalty. Okay, I talked to Eli about it, and he said, yeah, we made a mistake charging and collecting taxes, but we stopped now, right? Sorry for this inconvenience. It's more than an inconvenience. Okay, and then he said, but we're only going to correct the mistake by returning it for 7 years back because there's probability of a statute of limitations. Well, that's not the right way to do it. You make a mistake, you correct the mistake, you return the overcharge and collect taxes to correct the city's mistake. So we handled the same way it was required to be collected in the first place by the managers who have all the records and the credit cards and the receipts. After a decade, repayment should be adjusted for inflation and returned under the same penalty of fine the city would have charged for any delay in their payment in the first place. So this is going to take a little more time than tonight, I think, to sort out. But those are my comments, and I'll put them together in a letter this week.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the community? Paula.
The money has been paid already. It's a very small amount compared to what guests have paid for their vacation. It's a nuisance trying to notify the guests, pay them back. Unlikely guests are going to pursue this. I suggest that the county do a tally of all the extra taxes they collected that they shouldn't have and donate it to Ukraine.
Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome.
Anybody else who has any comments? I don't see any, so we'll bring it back to the council. Do any council members have anything else they would like to add or any questions before we take a vote? All right.
Yeah, I just, I'd like to make a comment too. Like a lot of this happened when nobody who's at this table now was at this table. So we're not infallible, but when we find that we made a mistake, we're going to do what we can to correct it as soon as possible and come up with amicable solutions that we all participate in and learn from our mistakes. And from this point forward, we'll make sure that the electric, that they know what's going on, when they have to. And I specifically went for policy, and I understand a lot of cities hire people specifically as a policy expert now because you can get really confused really fast because there's a lot of overlap going on in agencies. So that's just my comment to this whole thing before we move forward.
One of the things we're deciding is to provide staff direction regarding what to do with this tourist occupancy tax collection. So we haven't made any final decisions. We're working on what we will do in the future. So I think we're ready to make a motion. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Councilman West. So I would like to make a motion that the council adopt resolution number 2022-06 and instruct staff to provide guidance as recited in the staff report regarding the TOT tax collection and commence review of the TOT ordinance for substantive amendment and revision, and potentially to present that revision and amendment to the city's general electorate. So we want to get this fixed, basically.
I think you want to add to make sure we reduce the tax too, because I don't think you mentioned that.
Yes. So make sure that what are you saying? Reduce, Jack?
Rescind,
yes, and rescind, yes. Sorry, from 10 to 8%, because I believe we'd already done 12 to 10. So yes. And that's it.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Gabe, you got that okay?
I think I do, Councilmember West. Let me just make sure I'm reading from the staff recommendation in the staff report, just so I get the motion correct. It was it was made by Kelly, and the second was Grover. Okay.
Yep.
And we've got a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2022-06, instruct staff to provide guidance as recited in the staff report presented by city staff in the meeting packet regarding occupancy tax collection, and commence review of the ordinance for substantive amendment and revision and potential presentation to the city general electorate. If that's correct, then we'll go ahead with a vote.
And Gabe, Councilman West asked me to add and rescinding the increase from 10% to 8%. Or sorry, it went from 8 to 10. We're rescinding that back to 8.
Correct. Okay, good. Thanks for bringing that up. So we're going to rescind the increase.
Yes.
From 10 to 8, correct. Added to that motion there, and we'll go ahead. Let's go with a vote here. So we've got. Let's go with Kelly.
Aye.
Grover.
Aye.
West.
Yes.
And Tuttle.
Aye.
Looks like we got a passing of the motion 4-0 with Mayor Ladwig abstaining, recusing, actually.
Thank you, Gabe. We're going to move on to number 2, and I think we're going to get our mayor back. So Mayor Ladwig, are you with us? There you are.
I am. Thank you for bringing me back. So item number 2, discussion decision to appoint 2 council members to an ad hoc committee for government to government meeting with the Eureka tribe. Eli, I believe you have been contacted by the tribe, and if you could give us some background, that would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you. So yes, we did receive a letter from the Yurok tribe, and the letter is attached. They requested to have a meeting with 2 members of the city council, our ad hoc committee. And I responded that, yes, we could have that meeting with the 2 members. And also the fact that we would be bringing it up at this meeting to determine who those 2 members are, and that I will be contacting them tomorrow to let them know, and then try to set up an actual meeting with our representatives and their representatives. And that's it that I have right now. So I don't know if Russ wants to add to that, or if the council has any questions.
And if I could just ask Russ to review the government to government agreement that the city has, just so that everybody's on the same page.
Yes, and so as the council may recall, it did adopt a formal policy to facilitate government to government consultations in 2021. And that policy does include appointing an ad hoc committee when a consultation request is received, assuming that subject matter is not subject to the confidentiality preclusions for culturally sensitive resources. And so a request to meet has been submitted to the city, and a request that 2 council members be made available to participate in this consultation. So the staff recommendation, assuming the council is inclined, is to go ahead and appoint an ad hoc committee to facilitate that meeting. Again, we've notified the tribe requesting the consultation that meeting and the ad hoc committee will be agendized like a regular public meeting and open to public attendance in accordance with the council's consultation policy for adopted last year. So absent any questions, then the request would be that you go ahead and appoint an ad hoc committee at this time.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments from the council regarding this item? Ms. Kelly?
Yeah, I guess just briefly, since I was on the planning commission when we had the discussion about the lighthouse, I did want to say that we were very concerned about the fact that we received, I think I can speak for the whole commission, that we received a letter from the Yurok tribe shortly before we were making the decision. And so I had actually personally had meetings and reported out ex parte discussions with the Rancheria, the Civic Club, the former Mayor Rotwein, the TCLT, the city manager, Mayor Ladwig, and had phone conversations with Taz, the Shrai Ancestral Society, but I was not able to talk to the Yurok tribe. And I mention that because I think it does make sense to hear the feedback. And again, I think we were very concerned at the time about the potential for what was the cultural issues that might be raised with that permanent move of the TML to the harbor area. So I'm just personally in favor of an ad hoc committee meeting with the tribe. I think it makes good sense, and maybe we can come to some creative solutions.
Thank you very much. Other questions, comments from the council before I open it up to the general public? All right, seeing none at this time, any comments from the general public? All right, seeing none at this time, I'll bring it back to the council for recommendations.
Well, I guess I recommend that we appoint 2 people to the ad hoc committee. I'm happy to be one of those people. Maybe that's appropriate, maybe it isn't, since I was the chair of the planning commission when we had that discussion. So I have the background, but we also made some decisions. So I'm open to what you all feel is appropriate.
And for procedural sake, let's thank you for your interest and for your motion. Let's see the motion through, and then if it does pass, we'll appoint those members. How about that?
Good point. Yeah, thank you.
Jack, did I see Mr. West? Did I see your hand go up?
I'll let you follow up what you just said, and then I'll speak.
Okay. All right, so we have a first motion from Ms. Kelly to approve the ad hoc. Do we have a second?
Second that.
All right, we have a first and a second. At this point, Gabe, would you mind doing a roll call vote?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We got a first and a second to appoint 2 council members to an ad hoc committee for a government-to-government meeting with the Yurok tribe. First by Councilmember Kelly, second by Grover. Start with Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Grover.
Aye.
Tuttle.
Aye.
West.
Yes.
Mayor Ladwig.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. At this point, let's talk about membership. So, Ms. Kelly, you've thrown your name in the hat. Are there other counselors who wish to join? Jack, looks like Mr. West, you have a comment.
I just want to say that I cannot be part of this. I'm pretty much married to the lighthouse, so I'm very glad, Cheryl. I'm glad you said that. I think it'd be a terrific. You have some. I think it's nice to have a background, and I think it'll be good to have someone with a bit of background. But yeah, I don't feel I can. So I just want to know it'll have to be somebody else.
Thank you for that. And I agree that Cheryl's background is priceless. As the city has a lot of turnover, that institutional memory is quite important. So I would support that. Mr. Tuttle, Mr. Grover, any interest in joining said ad hoc committee?
I forgot, did somebody say about how long it's gonna, because my time here is short-lived is my only patient.
And I would encourage you, Dave, to sort of step back and see if Jack or I, Mr. Tuttle or I, just because of your limited scope with us.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tuttle, do you feel like joining this committee to discuss the lighthouse?
I would definitely join if you, Mayor, don't have the time to do this.
I mean, I have the time and the interest, but I think I don't want to just always say yes, right? So right. I think this is an excellent opportunity for you to join in on the discussion.
Okay, then yes, I would join. Yes.
All right. So we have 2 members who are willing to participate in our ad hoc committee to meet with the Yurok tribe, Ms. Kelly and Mr. Tuttle. So at this point, I believe the next step would be to schedule meetings with the Yurok tribe. Mr. Nafa, would you be handling the scheduling of this?
Yes, I will reach out to them, let them know, find out some, dates that may work for them, and then I'll pass them on to both Ms. Kelly and Mr. Tuttle and let them know.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your volunteering. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, we have a presentation from Humboldt County Association of Governments Executive Director Beth Burks regarding current county transportation projects. Jack, I believe this is a connection that you've brought with us. Would you like to introduce Ms. Burks?
I would love to. You've done a good job. Beth Burks is the Executive Director. We get to hear. She's very active in our HCOG meetings, and she's been very pleasant to listen to and to all the things that she's doing. And I think HCOG is doing some amazing things, and she has volunteered to come and let us know what's going on. So, Beth, thank you for coming, and welcome to Trinidad.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint. I'm going to try to keep this fairly brief and high level. So, and I get really excited about transportation planning, so I tend to talk really fast. So just bear with me, and I'll be happy to take any questions at the end. Let me get to the screen share. How's that looking for everybody? You see an intro slide?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Well, then I'm just going to jump right into it. High level overview of HCOG, and then a little bit about what we're up to, and some focus on Trinidad as well. So let's take it from there. All right, so for anybody who's not super familiar with HCOG, I think we don't have enough recognition for our organization, but we are the county's designated regional transportation planning agency. And we are a joint powers agency. So we are composed of the 7 incorporated cities and the county of Humboldt. And for Trinidad, as you know, Councilmember West sits on our board. So, why might you want to care about HCOG and what we're up to? And I will say that our region's transportation infrastructure, it impacts everyone. It impacts everyone who lives here, every visitor who travels here, and all the goods and services that make their way to us and out to the world from us. So there's really no one that our transportation infrastructure doesn't touch in our community. And it really connects us all. And in terms of dollars, it is the community's biggest infrastructure investment when you think about transportation networks region-wide and beyond. So huge investment, and we want to protect that, and we want to make sure it's doing a good job of keeping us safe and getting us where we need to go as well. So I like to say that if you care about any of these things that are popping up, economic development, rising seas, trails, active transportation, getting your goods and services around, the economy, housing, and how that relates to our transportation choices, you should care about HCOG, because we talk about a whole lot of these things in our plans and in our meetings. And our regional transportation system is really hugely impacts our quality of life in our region. So, here at HCOG, we really provide the forum to plan for regional transportation issues and look at what's important for projects and discuss those at high levels, and then kind of map out what projects are important to seek funding for. So I'm going to go through some of our 2021 highlights. A lot of this will cover what we worked on last year. This was from an end of year report we did recently, but also many of these things kind of keep carrying over and are also the focus of this year and beyond. So the first thing that I want to talk about that happened in 2021 was that we adopted our regional transportation plan. This is a document that is, I like to think of it as basically the general plan for transportation in our county. It's really a comprehensive planning document specifically for transportation. It is a 20-year planning horizon, but we update it every 4 years. So this was the most recent update, and it's really a chance for us to be aspirational in what we want to accomplish transportation-wise throughout our communities. We put policies and projects in the plan that will help us be advocates for good transportation planning and really attract dollars to our region. So we want to sync up well with state funding priorities so that we can really position our projects and our plans well, so that when we see grant funds and things like that, we can point to this plan and say, yeah, we've already talked about this. This is important. We have priorities about this. So think of trails projects and things like that, active transportation, safe routes to school, things like that are all discussed in this plan. In order to really give us that good position for seeking funds as we move forward. So in the transportation plan, the kind of things we talk about, we have these safe and sustainable transportation targets, really thinking about how to make our transportation system more sustainable. How do we reduce vehicle miles traveled? How do we increase active transportation and transit opportunities? How are we going to make the transition to zero emission vehicles, fleets, and both we look at that, electric vehicles, and for a lot of our transit fleets, we're really looking also at hydrogen for those vehicles, and also a really big focus on improving safety on our roadways, both through education and engineering, and the other things we look at, transportation equity, and we really in this plan kind of list out all the projects that would get us there and the dollars needed to get it all done. And I will tell you, there are a lot more dollars needed than dollars available. So we work really hard to strategize on what will come next. The other thing that happened last year is we adopted the 2022 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This is how we are divvying up our regional dollars that come to us from a state program called the State Transportation Improvement Program. So it's a 5-year cycle, and we get the amounts we're looking to have come every 2 years. So for this particular cycle, we had for 2 years, next 2 years, we had $5.8 million to program for local projects. And I put the slate of the projects that were approved, and you'll see Trinidad did receive funding through this programming for Trinity Street Rehabilitation Project. And several other important projects came through as well. The one on the cover of the document is actually the Interchange modernization. It's the planning phase of this project, but this is in Fortuna, and this would add roundabouts and pedestrian access on 12th Street and 101. Really looking to connect the community of Fortuna to the Riverwalk side of the highway. But you see, Rio Dell's looking at neighborhood connectivity. County's got a rehab project. Arcata and Blue Lake also have projects in this plan. So it's a really nice way when we get this funding to kind of really make sure it gets distributed throughout the county. And I think our technical advisory committee and board do a really good job of looking really holistically at these funds and what they can be used for. So historically, the biggest use of these funds all through HCOG's history for these regional transportation improvement dollars, and this is actually for a Caltrans project, and this is the Highway 101 safety corridor improvements that are coming. You see some of them, it's really a Caltrans project that we put local shares into helping assist to make it go faster, which feels like a little bit of a, faster is relative because it feels like it's going very slow. It's been going on for over 20 years. The part that HCOG really is participating in the funding for is the Indianola undercrossing, the new interchange that will happen at Indianola. And this, of course, the safety corridor for many years is the highest priority safety project because of the fatalities that were occurring, even now when they slow down. I think there were accidents just today. I saw it, but there was an accident right here at this crossing. So definitely still high priority safety project. This project and all of the different iterations that have come through was part of what really spurred the Bay Trail, and some of the mitigation funding for this project has gone towards the Bay Trail. So it's really comprehensive in terms of, yes, there's safety for the vehicles, but also looking at how we're getting other road users, bicycles and pedestrians back and forth from Eureka to Arcata, and certainly, a regionally important route. We do expect construction to begin in 2023, and I'm hopeful that will be the case, and we're going to see that project coming to fruition very soon. Another big planning study that concluded last year was the Eureka Broadway multimodal corridor plan. And this is really looking at another area that has just a high safety priority for our region, and so important in terms of, regionally important roadway. And this is all along Highway 101. And this planning went on for, before I was here at HCOG, and concluded last year. And it's really about how can we improve Broadway to be safer for pedestrians and bicyclists and move traffic more efficiently. And what they came up with is the preferred alternatives. You see on the left side of the screen here was this double couplet idea. So if you can imagine the northbound lane or the existing highway kind of becoming northbound throughout, and having the southbound actually kind of deviate and go off on a different route for portions. They call it the Coster couplet and the Southern couplet. And then the southern part of Broadway, we would work within the existing right-of-way to improve pedestrian access. And what happens with these couplet ideas, and the point of that becoming the preferred alternative, was really to give more right-of-way, so that you could have proper sized sidewalks, and you could have actual dedicated transit lane and get the buses flowing quicker through the corridor and make it more appealing to take the bus. Looking at having bike lanes on either side that were actually safe to use. So really in these certain pinch points, there's just not enough right of way to accommodate all of those different users. But having this plan has really spurred action. And this was a group effort with the city of Eureka and Caltrans and HCOG. And now Caltrans has taken on sections of this plan to study further and actually for construction as well. So the southern part, Caltrans is currently working on and has funding for a complete street project. So on the southern end, it's looking at all the different pedestrian improvements that can happen there, and they're still designing that. They opened those meetings to the public. So it's a really great collaborative process to weigh in on how we would see Broadway improved. They've recently expanded that sort of complete street idea of just looking specifically to pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements all the way up to where Broadway turns into 4th and 5th. So sort of, even where we would ultimately want those couplets to really get the full suite of improvements, what can we do there in the near term to just improve the safety, because it is just one of our most dangerous roadways in the communities. Another thing we did last year is we published the bike map application. So you can even do this if you have a phone with you, you can do it through your screen. If you use this QR code, you can also get there from our website, which is hcog.net. And we have mapped out using GIS all of the bikeways throughout Humboldt County. And you'll see that they, it's noted by color if it's a multi-use path or what level bike lane it is. And it also will tell you what level rider you need to be. So, if it's mellow, you could take a family on it. And if it's brave, that's really for very skilled riders. So this is the first iteration of this. We had printed bike maps many times, a few iterations of those, but this is the first time we've put it in a an online template, and we'll be adding to it as more bike lanes get added. And you'll see this section is from Arcata, and the dashed lines are actually in the community forest, and the other lines are what's on the streets and then heading down into the Bay Trail. But we're really proud of this. We hope more people will start using it. Just publish. We want to get the word out that it exists and that it's a good resource for people in our community. Some other things we work on, we're big on collaboration here at HCOG. So we're real active. I'm not going to read all these, but just a few things. We're real active in the North Coast Tribal Transportation Commission. We provide administrative support for the Humboldt Bay Trail Fund Committee, and that divvies up grant resources annually for organizations that are looking to maintain the Bay Trail. We're really active in the Bike Month Coalition, and I'll talk more about that in a minute because we do have Bike Month coming up in May. So a lot of, you see the Go Slow, Watch the Road campaign. That's hopefully those signs are popping up. Hopefully there's a few of them in Trinidad as well. But that's a county-wide effort that was spearheaded by Eureka Mayor Susan Seaman, really just hoping to help us all go slower. It's a simple thing we can do. It's free if you're, if you're the driver of a vehicle. Going slow is absolutely free, and it really does reduce fatalities and injuries if we're going slower on our roads. Engineering is really important, but education is another way we can help improve safety. So we are active in that campaign and happy to help people get signs up on their lawns if that's something anyone's interested in. We do a lot of local outreach. We also work at the state level with other partners. We're really active in the Rural Counties Task Force, which is a rural group of all kind of transportation commissions and COGs, really trying to amplify the rural voice at the state level, because so many of the dollars that come through, they are focused on urban areas. So we really try to work with other organizations to get the information known about rural needs and what our special circumstances are. Another random thing we do at HCOG is we have one small sliver. Mostly we're all transportation related, but for many years we have been the organization tasked with the regional housing needs allocation. And this is the process that divvies up the housing numbers that come out of the state for the local region. So these are the numbers you plug into your housing element. And as part of that, recently there was a new program, the first time regional funds were allocated for regional early action planning for housing and affordable housing. So we've been administering this REAP process for about a year and a half now. And we got about $750,000. We work with all the local planners, and there is a rep from Trinidad. I think Trevor is participated in that group. There is a good chunk of the money is going to support the county's climate action plan and the environmental review for that. And that was selected because it is a regional regionally important project, and it is a regional climate action plan that each city will be able to use for their own climate action planning. And so we're supporting that with these REAP dollars. The other thing we have available is education and outreach funding, and also technical assistance. So even the city of Trinidad would be able to apply for some of the technical assistance dollars if there's a project that you have, perhaps an ordinance revision or something like that, that would be useful, that you would see as accelerating affordable housing in your city. That's something you could be looking into. So Trevor Parker would be a good resource for that, but also certainly let me know, and I can get you more information. So we have a lot of fiduciary duties here at HCOG, and we get money from the state, formula money often, sometimes discretionary in terms of where it goes, but it's our job to distribute that throughout the region. So in 2021, HCOG actually distributed nearly $9 million throughout the region, and this comes from sources like the local transportation fund, state transit assistance. Sometimes we administer these by doing a call for projects. Other times it is formula, like I was saying, we just kind of have a formula we plug in and make sure it gets to where it needs to be for the right purposes. So most of that money goes to transit, and that ended up being roughly $6.8 million towards transit. Mainly that goes to the big transit providers, Humboldt Transit Authority, and they operate the Eureka route and others. And then Arcata has their own, Fortuna has a smaller transit system. So we really work to divvy the money up we have there throughout our transit systems and make sure the money has different purposes depending on what pot it's coming from. But this is for things like new buses, operations support, safety improvements, and planning for the transition to zero emission fleets. It also does things like improving bus stops and reduced fare promotions. So local streets and roads also receive money from HCOG, in addition to that STIP money where we get that amount, that bigger amount that we can divvy up project related. Local streets and roads, we had about 2.1 million last year to divvy up between our jurisdictions. Part of this is a 2% set aside for the local transportation fund, specifically for bike and ped projects, bicycle and pedestrian projects. And you'll see on my next slide, Trinidad has been the recipient of those funds occasionally. What also happens, the money, here, let me get to my next slide before I get ahead of myself. So I did want to say just kind of what comes to Trinidad from HCOG, and through the local transportation fund, from what I can tell in the last few years, just rough average, it looks like we got anywhere between 12,000 and 16,000 per year for that. And the money from that first goes towards paying your share of your fees to Humboldt Transit Authority as part of their joint powers agency that they have. And the rest of it can be used on local streets and roads projects. And then for that 2% bike and ped set aside that I talked about, Trinidad has received since 2016 over $25,000 from that fund. A couple times it received money for grant support for active transportation projects. And then it also funded the rapid rectangular flashing beacons that are in front of Trinidad School on Trinidad Street. And then in the STIP, the regional funds for fiscal year 2021, there was $435,000. This was in a prior STIP cycle, but came to Trinidad for downtown Trinidad pedestrian and connectivity improvements. And then in this current STIP cycle, as I mentioned, another $277,000 for Trinity Street pavement and rehabilitation. So that's just maintenance on the system. And those funds came to Trinidad as well. And then back to HCOG in terms of what we're focused on moving forward. These priorities really came out of our regional transportation planning update. And we are focused on climate change, combating that. Transportation is the biggest single contributor to our carbon our carbon footprint. So we want to do what we can to reduce VMT, vehicle miles traveled, and make sure we're doing our part. We talk a lot in our regional transportation plan about housing and vibrant neighborhoods and the connections between housing and transportation options, and the importance of, as we create more housing, which is very much needed, how we do that while providing those good transportation options. Certainly, major safety concerns on our roads here, and looking at how we can improve that, and as we make it safer for pedestrians and bicyclists, people can do those active transportation modes and have great health impacts, quality of life out of that. And then the other thing we're focused on is equity and relationship building. So really focused on looking at how we're spending our transportation dollars, making sure we're doing so equitably, and then building relationships throughout the community and really elevating HCOG's, stature and just making sure people know about us and what we're trying to accomplish. And then on the bottom here, you'll see, really kind of coming through all of this is finding the dollars for all of the really important projects we want to see accomplished. Certainly with the new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we are focused on, kind of scouring all the opportunities in that and bringing more funds to Humboldt County through those opportunities. And then just upcoming events, May is Bike Month. We have a lot of activities that will be surrounding that. The big one will be a bike celebration at Jefferson Community Center in Eureka on May 21st. And just happy to have you join. There's a Love to Ride website, so you can form a team and log all your miles during Bike Month. And we do have a Facebook, so if you join us on that, you'll get all the updates about that. And we'll be sure to inform our board about the activities as well, so Councilmember West can report back to all of you about that. And then I would say just other community activities, HCOG presentations. We love to tell anybody that will listen more about what HCOG is up to and what we're trying to accomplish for the community. So if you are involved in a civic group, Rotary or Chamber of Commerce, anybody, who needs an educational program over the lunch hour about, anything in the community, we are happy to be part of that program and make a presentation of any length. So please let me know about that. So with that, I'll just say thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and present before all of you and let you know more about what HCOG's doing. Happy to take any questions that anyone has, and my contact information is there. Please reach out, and I'm happy to chat with anybody. So I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can chat more.
Thank you very much, Beth. Quite an informative presentation. So we also learned how we're directly affected. So thank you for making it very Trinidad centric. So we see what the organization is doing for Trinidad. Any questions, comments for Beth from the general public or the council? Ms. Kelly?
Oh, I know I'm on the Trinidad City Council, but my question is about Eureka and the rehabilitation that you're doing there to the roads. Is there a plan to improve the pedestrian crosswalk kind of safety situation at all, or do you know?
Through the 101 corridor in Eureka? Yes. Yeah, so those are all primarily Caltrans projects, and they do have a safety project specific to 4th and 5th, looking at those crosswalks. So we may see more beacons, things like that. So they're working on that actively with the city of Eureka. And then certainly that complete street project on the Broadway section is underway, and they are working actively on designs for that and focus specifically on the pedestrian and bike issues there.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thanks for the investment in Trinidad too, by the way. So we appreciate it.
Jack?
Just want to thank Beth for coming, and also realize that HCOG is there's a tremendous amount of money, but we're all, it may get a little bit less in Trinidad because it's all based on population, but we're all driving everywhere, and they're doing a great job. And the development of trails, and they're not trying to get cars on the road, they're trying to get people out safely place to place. So it's just a great organization. I'm glad we get to hear about it. So thank you for me, Beth, and I hope everybody enjoyed hearing a little bit about HCOG. They have a nice website, so it's HCAOG. You can look them up and find out what they're doing. So thanks.
And I can let you know, Beth, that we do have the traffic signs that Mayor Seaman came up with. We have a few in Town Hall. If people want to put them in their yard, we have one on our fence around the tennis court. So it's nice to see those I've only been as far south as Scotia, but so I don't know if Garberville, but I've seen those signs in every community. So they seem to be well embraced by the folks that have them in their yards. Other comments, questions for Beth? Dave?
Just a comment. I really appreciate you coming here and giving us the lowdown on what's going on in the area. I love the joint powers authorities we have in Humboldt and how, it just shows the collective, how we can pull together and how this all, coagulates kind of and becomes something real, I like that couplet design. That's new to me. I didn't realize we were going to do that. That is just so brilliant. It's just going to save so much time and, like you said, vehicle miles traveled and things like that. So yeah, just thanks for that really good presentation.
Thanks. Well, I will warn you, the couplet is the next, 20-year project, right? It's not, it takes a very long time, but it is, one thing I'm really heartened by is that having that plan in place that we have, that Broadway multimodal plan, it really sets the framework. And so again, that concept of positioning ourselves well for funding for the next stages of the project, having that plan in place then allows Caltrans to do their initial study reports. And, we got to keep the ball rolling by having that. And so, certainly those couplets won't be coming to our neighborhoods any year soon, but really happy to see that Caltrans is taking it serious and moving the next steps along.
Yeah, well, hopefully, and the cutoff won't be that long because we saw the time lapse film in school, and it's just amazing. Somebody doesn't die there every day. I mean, it's just really brutal there. So hopefully they'll get on that one soon. So thanks.
All right. Any other questions, comments for Beth?
I just want to also thank Beth. And as a side note, we have about 10 of those signs that were just referred to about driving safely at the town hall. So anyone in the community that would like to have one in their front yard, stop by the town hall.
And I believe we can get more if we run out.
Yes.
So so thank you very much, Beth, also for enduring the first hour of our lovely city business. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
At this point, go ahead.
Oh, just thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Take care. At this point, we will move on to item number 4, discussion decision regarding first reading of ordinance 2021-02, amending section blah, blah, blah of the ordinance regarding short-term rentals, which is my cue to recuse myself, being that it's regarding short-term rentals. So Mayor Pro Tem West, I ask that you please take over.
Okay. Well, we're on to the 4th item, and I'm trying to get there real quick. Let me see. So we're going to be looking at it says the first reading of ordinance 2021-02 for the regulating the short-term rentals. And of course, we looked at the first reading and we had sent it back to decide the lottery system that was put together. And so this is continuing a first reading, and we're just looking at that one place, and that was sent to the planning commission. Is that right, Eli?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was sent to the planning commission, and there's a good summary in the agenda item in the packet, the first 2 pages. Trevor had prepared that, and basically at their March 16th meeting, the planning commission discussed the lottery system and recommended making no additional changes at this time, but that it should be revisited during the next review of the ordinance. So that is their recommendation. And there's a little bit more detail regarding the history as to how that came about. And staff is recommending that we approve the first reading of the ordinance and that the lottery system be revisited after we've done it, because we haven't had a chance to do it yet, be revisited when we consider modifications to the STR ordinance in the future.
Okay, so first of all, was anybody on the council have any questions for Eli about this first reading? Okay, Cheryl.
I don't necessarily have a question, but when it's appropriate, I gave a call to Jeff Adams at Cannon Beach, and we had modeled some of our STR lottery thinking around what they do there. And so when you're ready for it, I'd like to just give a 1-minute kind of summary of what he shared with me that might help us, find a way forward.
Great. Okay, we'll come back to that. How about, does anybody in the community have anything they'd like to ask or ask Eli, or just some comments? It's your opportunity. Put your hand up or say something.
Hand up, but I do have some comments. It's Mike Morgan calling for Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast, Trinidad Tourism and Lodging. So as I volunteered for the advisory committee in February, I took a little closer look at this beyond the experience I already have as a hotel. I do kind of understand a lot of this stuff from my business. So I just I'd already mentioned that you guys you defined the bed and breakfast kind of, and you exempted me from this because we're not an STR, which is fine. However, it needs to exempt my business as a commercial bed and breakfast hotel and any other hotel and any other commercial motel, and it needs to follow the state guidelines there. So I hope they'll update that in the next update to this, because they didn't do it this time. That comment, and then I've also think that under section 1756 196.26.n tourist occupancy tax, I hope you guys really reviewed that part and the subsequent part about the audit and inspection. I'm not sure for STRs if STR guests are protected like our guests are protected from the city just receiving information that's private. Any guest record that we as a commercial hotel have to turn over to the city needs a warrant from the court to be able to get any information other than the amount and when they stayed. So maybe you don't do it this time, but I'd look at that audit and inspection section again, because the city's not, I'm sure they're not entitled to audit and determine anything about guests and who stayed and all that sort of stuff. So those are the 2 points I'll make.
Thank you. Sherry.
Thank you. Good evening. And I just wanted to thank the City Council for sending this back to the Planning Commission to just relook at it with fresh eyes and another perspective. So I appreciate you taking another month to do that. My question would be, when would you look at the ordinance again? Because it sounds like there's still some things that we want to clarify and make sure they're very clear. When would you anticipate the Planning Commission relooking at the ordinance? Would that be within a 2-year period, or is there some ordinance now that you have that says we review ordinances every year? Or so could you give me some explanation about that? Thank you.
Yeah, I would anticipate within 2 years. It doesn't state specifically, although the initial review was supposed to be within 2 years. So I would think it would be logical and prudent to review it at least within 2-year period.
Anybody else have a question or a comment about?
Can I make a suggestion then?
Sherry, yes.
I think it's good to put somewhere either in the motion or in the minutes somewhere that it'll be reviewed within a 2-year period. I know that everybody gets very busy and we always forget like our to-do lists. And so I think that's something that can be tracked by motions, and then that way you can just follow through with your recommendation there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else would like to make a comment? I don't see any at this point, so we'll bring it back to the council. Any councilor have any other comments or anything you want to add right now? Carol?
Go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not. My screen's not on anyways because I lose my hearing. I just wondered if in response to her comment, if Eli knew if there was a time frame on that already, or if it should be added to this motion when it's made.
Yeah, I think Sherry's suggestion to add it to the motion would be good, because the way the STR ordinance reads is that initially it was to be reviewed within 2 years, but after that it basically implies on as needed basis. So I think it would be good to have in there within 2 years. So this way, hopefully no longer than 2 years would be the intent.
Good, yeah, me too.
Cheryl?
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a brief update from this discussion with Cannon Beach so that we, in terms of best practices. So they had 3 different types, and I'll keep this short, hopefully like a minute, but they had 3 different types of STRs. They had 40 to 50 that were grandfathered in, that were basically in place were in place at the time of enactment of their ordinance. And then they had another 40 to 50 that they called 5-year unlimited lottery licenses. Only 1 STR was allowed per resident, but they had 40 to 50 of those. Remember, they're a bigger community. But then the third type that they had is a new type that we might want to consider in the 2 years' time when we look at the ordinance, and that is a 14-day rental, they call it. It's a little hard to explain, but essentially the time period of, you can only have guests in place every 14 days, regardless of how long they stay. And so what happens is you end up with some gaps, and these types of rentals, they have found for short-term rentals have been good in residential areas because it's not, they're not rented out 100% of the time. But they're in addition to these other types of STRs. But what I actually called him about, it was great that he gave me that background, but what I called him about was the lottery, because that's what the one we modeled ourselves after. And he said he's actually been the one who administered it, and he said it was very straightforward, and it worked very well. In fact, it was one of the things that he kind of said was everybody's favorite call at the city staff to make, because they could tell somebody they won the lottery. But essentially, they just put the names in a spreadsheet and assigned a number for each of those names, and then they would simply draw the number. I did explain to him that we had a little bit of a challenge here because we haven't had open licenses for several years, and he made an interesting suggestion, and it was that, sorry, we're getting a lot of feedback, but he made an interesting suggestion that perhaps we, just a thought, that we could consider in the lottery, another option would be giving folks, kind of like the NFL draft, you give them a number essentially for every year they've been on the waiting list. So that would then weight it for someone who, for example, put in an application in 2017 or 2018. They would essentially get 5 numbers, if I'm doing the math correctly, 4 or 5 numbers, and therefore their odds would go up. So anyway, so that was one of his suggestions. I'm not saying that's probably too complicated. I'm not saying we should do that, but I just wanted to pass along that the lottery worked well for them, and they really had no issues with it. And that's it.
Thank you, Cheryl. Is there anybody else on the council who has a comment?
No, but I agree with Cheryl. I like the fact, it might be a little premature tonight, but at least you're throwing it out there so everybody, can kind of get their feet wet with this ideas of there's more than one way to skin a cat, and especially if we're going to take the time to rewrite the ordinance. Yep. I like that weighted thing. That that's a different option.
And I believe you're working right now on a method to do this lottery. So I think you've got some good ideas, some more good ideas coming in.
Yeah. All of those ideas sound good. And then after we do adopt the STR ordinance after the second reading, and once it takes effect, then we will do the lottery. And in the meantime, what we will do is reach out to the people on the wait list and find out how many of them are still intending to have an STR if they win the lottery. So this way we don't, end up having some people that win the lottery but have decided not to have the STR.
All right, well, thank you. I think we're ready for a motion.
So I guess I can make the motion, and let's see, I guess it's a motion and a suggestion, but it's a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2022-02, amending section 17.56.160 of the Trinidad zoning ordinance regulating short-term rentals. And then my suggestion was to potentially have a legal review of this particular ordinance, just to make sure that potentially, as Mr. Morgan mentioned, that the TOT section and the others, I think the other section as well on, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting what it was now, but it was inspection, basically. I don't remember the word for it. Anyway, that's a suggestion, but the motion stands.
And was there the amendment too, that this be done within the 2-year time frame?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thanks very much. Yes, and that the ordinance be reviewed on a 2-year cycle by the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
All right, Gabe, now that Cheryl's given you 2 interesting motions to try to put together, how do you, are you able to get that put together for us?
Yeah, I think I am. Let's start with the motion. So every ordinance requires 2 motions, or I'm sorry, 2 readings. The first and a second reading, they can't be more than, I think, it's got to be more than 14 days apart. So with our schedule, we'll probably hear the second reading in May, at the first meeting in May. So if the second component of this motion, the legal review, brings up any changes, we'll just end up going back to a first reading in May. As Councilmember Kelly is suggesting, if it hasn't been done already, which I'd be surprised if it got this far and has not been reviewed legally, but in the event it hasn't, then we just start over in May. And I think that's reasonable. So those 2 components of the motion, I believe, are set. And then the third one is to be reviewed on a 2-year cycle by the Planning Commission. So to go back to the first part of this motion real quick, we'll say, to make this first reading legit, we will waive the full reading of the ordinance and read it by title only. So that would be a first by Councilmember Kelly. And I'm sorry, who was the second? Was that Grover?
Yes.
Yeah.
To hold the first reading of ordinance 2021-02, amending section 1756160626 as certified of the Trinidad zoning ordinance regulating short-term rentals, to conduct a legal review of the ordinance this month, and to have it reviewed on a 2-year cycle by the Planning Commission. All in favor? I guess we'll start with, let's go with Kelly.
Aye.
Grover?
Aye.
West?
Yes.
And who we have left? Tuttle?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. And Ladwig recused, so that passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And we'll bring the mayor back and get number 5.
Thank you once again, Mr. West, for running those agenda items. And we're on number 5 now, continued discussion decision regarding returning to live city council and planning commission meetings. There is what I feel anyway, is a very, very good summary of not only the intent of returning to in-person meetings, but also what we're trying to preserve. So the intent is to return to a setting when we can have more face-to-face, in-person, iterative sorts of discussions and whatnot. And at the same time, discussing this hybrid meeting to ensure maximum participation for those unable to participate for health reasons, for travel reasons, for personal reasons, with the consideration for a lot of suggestions, I think a lot of very valuable suggestions on how to handle the different new challenges about tech and what that tech difficulty does to a council meeting in a hybrid situation and so on. So again, I'm just really thankful for both Gabe and Eli for really considering a lot of options, for getting input from other cities, and for giving the council and the community quite a bit to think about. So Gabe, Eli, I'm not sure if you want to add more to it. I know that you had an offer from, I believe it was Blue Lake, or I can't remember now exactly who, to get all of their tech equipment to give it a try. But if you guys want to add to that, please do at this time.
Yeah, I had talked to, or had gotten information from the city managers meeting on Arcata, Rio Del, and Blue Lake. But then Gabe went ahead and did further research, and he's the one who was able to get the contact information with Blue Lake. So I'll just turn it over to him, and he can elaborate on what he has in the report.
Thank you, Eli. Yeah, I just want to, I had fun with this one, more fun than I thought I would have. I got to watch a lot of city council meetings, at least the beginnings of council meetings, and even what appears to be some of the baby steps of this process unfolding right before our eyes. And I put a report together, a brief report that hopefully everyone had a chance to take a look at. And there's a variety of things that people are doing. Everybody's kind of taking their own steps. But what I've discovered, obviously, is that there's a high budget way to do this and a low budget way to do this. And there's not much in between. So we were lucky enough to, well, when I approached this, I thought, maybe I should just take a look at how some other meetings work so that I can see what might be some of the pitfalls without having to necessarily call all these folks and ask them, what they like and what they dislike about their system. And I think sometimes the videos speak for themselves louder than, what people can communicate to you. But I did actually reach out to a few people, Joey Blaine in particular from MCSD. He's looking for, he's got to get permission from the director over there to allow him to maybe cart some of the equipment up here to give it a test. But he found a pretty low budget method that I thought was bang for the buck. It was pretty good. But what I didn't add in this report, which was a conversation I had with Juan from Access Humboldt, who's been streaming our content, basically everything we see on the Zoom meeting. He streams it to our YouTube channel and our archive.org, which is what the public has a chance to see after the fact. And he and I had a really good conversation today. He's the one who, Access Humboldt watches all these meetings, and he's had some really good insight and offered some opportunities for us in the longer term, within the 3 to 5 months, to invest a little more money, not a lot, but as much as 2 owls would cost, which even the owl technology, as you can see from my report in Rio Del, it's working, but it has its pitfalls as well. He offered to give us a little more of a permanent option for a similar budget that I kind of think would be either a step 2 if we really are in a hurry to get this thing off the ground in the next 30 to 60 days, which he and I are still developing at this time. But what I mentioned in the report, I kind of threw some things out, some ground rules, some of the in-person precautions that the other cities are making, some things we're really going to have to kind of dive into a little bit deeper. But I'm really hoping that my first step would be, this month, or hopefully before the May meeting, is being able to meet with Joey. If MCSD gives him permission, we'll set up the meeting room and see how it works. I'm concerned with the fact that we've got several staff members that, we're all pretty computer and tech savvy, but this can be quite clunky if you don't do it right, in trying to manage all the different technologies that are occurring, including our soundboard, including the presentation material, including the Zoom room. And, I kind of like sitting back and maybe not being on the cutting edge of this process and learning from these other agencies. So I kind of wanted to just throw this out there tonight, like you said, Mayor Ladwig, just make sure that we had followed through with our commitment last month to do our research, and then keep building on that. But I also kind of wanted to hear if there's any real level of intensity as far as, making a firm, hard deadline of being back in the meeting room by next month. And if that's the case, well, that's going to have to put the throttle down a little bit more on staff to make something happen. So with that, I'll kind of turn it back over to you guys. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer.
I can certainly speak for the question you just raised, and the urgency is, I don't feel like we have any kind of deadline. I think doing it right the first time is a lot better than doing it wrong three times. You know what I mean? So if we can ensure the smoothest possible transition, again, I'm hearing very much what you're saying about multiple technologies to manage at once. And if it's something as simple as boosting the Wi-Fi capability in the hall to allow for that, then let's take that step first and then build from there. So my initial reaction is to do it right the first time and learn from our colleagues. So that's just my 2 cents. Other counselors and then general public. Dave?
Yeah, I thought that was the right idea too. It seemed like you got a lot done this month, but I agree with the mayor. Why, do it right now. And if you get the chance to, become used to some of this equipment or borrow some of it or whatever we got to do, and more people want to get involved and check out the stuff online with you, so you get more eyes on it and more input, taking an extra month just is so worth it to me, just to have it done right.
Other thoughts from the council? Cheryl?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Gabe for the due diligence. This looks good. I'd like to have a little more time to look at the different options. And I think it's a great idea to go look at the videos and see, kind of how it comes across. So, and agree with you both that, yeah, it's better to do it right. So anyway, thanks a lot, Gabe.
Jack, West?
Add my voice to the same thing there. I agree, Victor. I'd love to get us back in the town hall, but let's take our time to do a good job. And thanks, Gabe. This really looks great. We'll have lots to look at.
Mr. Tuttle, I see your microphone is off.
Yeah, I echo that. Thanks, Gabe, for all your help. And love to see what other cities are doing. If there's a city that you're checking out, maybe send us the YouTube video for what the other people are doing. Love to check it out.
And remember, this is for the Planning Commission as well. And just to bring people's, for those who hadn't read the recommendation, there's still place for Zoom. And so, for instance, these meetings that are short notification, some committee meeting, or it just makes everybody's schedule easier not to have to travel across town if they've got other commitments. Just to kind of keep that in our back pocket as well. So at this point, if there are any comments, questions from the general public, we'd love to hear them.
Mayor, it's Mike Morgan.
Go ahead.
Mike Morgan, Trinidad Bay Bed and Breakfast resident and Trinidad Tourism and Lodging. I like Gabe's work. It's great. Looking at other cities, fine. Staying with virtual meetings when the concern is not COVID anymore or people dying is ridiculous. That's my opinion. And a lot of the country and a lot of the world's opinion. We've dropped all the mask mandates everywhere, traveling, everything's all opening up, and you guys are still talking on phones and computers. It's dumb. So I like Gabe's number 2, go straight to the live council and PC meetings exclusively and work to merge the virtual element in as we go. It's so easy. So if you need a new Wi-Fi, we just got the new current one, 6, whatever it is, super advanced, $1,000. It was very expensive. But I have one unit now that serves the whole hotel and helps me anywhere on the property. It's great. It would be great for town hall. It's cheap. Put a laptop in front of Gabe with a microphone and a phone on it and project it on the wall. And people who don't want to come in and social distance or get a vaccine or wear their mask or whatever is going to protect them can certainly call in. They can watch it the same way we're doing right now. Meanwhile, we'll be having a return to public in-person meetings, which is extremely important. We have laws and institution memory, faces to face. It's the way it should be done. This needs to stop. It's not about rushing. It's not about getting it perfect before we go. It's about, is COVID the coronavirus that's endemic, and can we live with it? The answer is yes. The answer is get back to public meetings and accommodate anybody who, for whatever reason, can't or doesn't want to come to town hall. Secondarily. Thank you.
Other comments from the general public?
Yes, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Diane Stockness from the Planning Commission, and I would like to go back to live meetings in the town hall, and I like what Mike Morgan said about letting Gabe go ahead and do the, go ahead and let him do the screen, and those people that can't come to the meeting can find it on TV or on the virtual Zoom screen. Okay, thanks.
All right. Other questions, comments? Ms. Provost, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mayor Ludwig. I was just wondering if when we do go back to in-person, will it be required to be vaccinated? Or will be there any restrictions? Have you thought about that? Because some of the businesses still have those kind of requirements. Thank you.
Yes, that's a great question. And I know that folks have been thinking about that. And it seemed anyway from what other cities were doing was it's some sort of combination of, a wellness check, vaccination and or mask requirements. And so as a city, we would determine, what the council is comfortable with, because we have to be there, and what the general public is also comfortable with. So I believe that we would develop those guidelines together, again, ensuring the greatest number of people to participate. Ms. Fleshner.
I concur with Diane and Mike that I hope we can return to the in-person meetings as soon as possible. I think these have served their purpose, and you've been all very adaptable, but it's time to get back to seeing each other eye to eye. I think our communications will be improved greatly. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula?
You might want to just go with the advice of county health instead of trying to figure it out month by month. They have pretty clear guidelines as far as masks, because things may change again and new variants, yada, yada, yada. But it would simplify the conversation to just go with county guidelines.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, we've been following county guidelines through the majority of this, so thank you for that input. Other thoughts? All right, bringing it back to council for direction for staff. Any thoughts, final thoughts on this, or summative sorts of comments? What you'd like to see?
I think Gabe's on the right track, so I would like to direct him to continue. And I like what was brought up lastly about the possibility of being in that situation again and having the option of Zoom meetings. So when we integrate into hybrid meetings, it's just going to make it easier if it happens again and things get shut down. It's a lot easier to switch back than to do the whole thing from the scratch. So that's my comments.
Other comments, questions, or guidance from the council? Ms. Kelly?
I think I need to come off mute. Just listening to the feedback, I do think maybe we look at in-person meetings. So my hesitation for in-person meetings is not personal. It's not that I have a problem with being in person right now. I'm sure the rest of the council probably feels the same way to a degree, right? I think it's more about the folks in town who want to attend, and some are comfortable coming in person and some are not. And so it was the idea of hybrid that we discussed last month was to give people an option, that they would have an option. And that's the part that's going to take a little technology sorting out. So I still like that idea. I guess maybe we could say, gee, if we don't have a solution that's perfect for hybrid by June, we'll just revert back to in-person meetings, and people will have to, can make a decision about whether they're comfortable in attending or not. I mean, at some point we may have to do that, but I think the hybrid model we were trying to get to was kind of the best of both worlds.
And I agree. I was going to suggest a June target date as a rollout of whatever tech we're able to come up with to have the hybrid. So I would definitely concur on the June. Mr. Tuttle, Mr. West, thoughts?
I'll just add that I don't want to put a lot of pressure on Gabe to be, I want to be able to feel comfortable with what comes up. So let's make sure he feels good about what we're doing. And if we can, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it in May, but June would be great if we could at least get to that point.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of a in-person meeting. So whenever the city's ready and Gabe's ready, I'll be for it.
Right on, Gabe. Do you have any closing questions for the council that you want guidance on or anything like that?
No, I just what I'll say is that I appreciate the flexibility of being able to target June, because that's exactly what I've been talking about with, the various consultants that I'm working with, whether that be Access Humboldt and or Joey Blaine. Having that flexibility will give us a chance. Now, I'll say two more things. Number one, just in closing, if it were as easy as just plugging a computer in and putting projecting it onto a screen, I think all these cities would be on the same page right now. But it's not. It's more complicated than that. There's feedback issues. There's all kinds of potential interferences that come when you're trying to use microphones, call-ins, and various other technologies together. And I went over that in great detail with Access Humboldt today. And the last thing, and I'll say, but we're working on it. And then the last thing I'll say this is what I realized today too is that our new employees, one of which, and maybe two, who will be asked to be hosting these meetings, setting up and taking down for these meetings, have not ever seen a live meeting in Trinidad yet. So as soon as I brought up and I showed them the soundboard that we use to be able to mix and match everyone's vocals, they just looked at me like I was kind of crazy. So, I mean, I think we've got I got a little bit of a task at hand to not only show them how we do business here on a regular basis, but then also add these additional layers of technology. So I appreciate that flexibility. So we're not fumbling and panicking, with a hot public after us, saying that they can't participate, and there's issues. So thank you for that.
Right on. Well, thanks for the discussion, everybody. And obviously count us in for, trial runs, sort of that we can log in from different locations or be in the town hall, whatever you need from us, to get the greatest sort of test situation. Please let us know, and we'll do everything but put the phone on the dashboard as we're driving down the 101, which I can't stand when people zoom into meetings like that. So we'll do a proper test for you to help you out. At this point, we'll move on to number 6. Discussion decision regarding appointment to fill vacancy on the Trinidad Planning Commission. Eli, can you give us a short rundown on what our needs are for the Planning Commission and what this appointment would be?
Sure. So we have a vacancy on the Planning Commission, and as a result, it's one vacancy, and we wanted to fill that vacancy. And we have been advertising for it, and we've received one application, and that is from Tristan Cole. He is on the call. Also, he had submitted a letter of interest that's included in the packet. So if you have any questions, comments, if you would like to direct it to him to make some comments, and I'm here if you need any additional information.
And just so everyone knows what we're doing here, this particular vacancy is for a position that remains open through December of this year, 2022, at which point that term would end. And so it is a temporary appointment, if you will, just for context, I guess, in terms of what the council is doing here. So at this point, Tristan, I've lost you on the screen. Oh, there you are to my left. Yes, if you want to say something, Tristan, we do have your letter, but if there's anything you want to say to the council and the general public, now's your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have regarding my background or history or qualifications. I'm just hoping to fulfill a need, I guess, perform my civic duty, and help out and learn a little bit more about our city government, I guess.
Do you mind sharing, Tristan, just a little bit of your background as it sort of relates to the duties of a planning commissioner?
Sure. I wouldn't say I have much pertinent experience to any sort of government, municipal government, or anything like that. I mean, my career is in natural resources. I'm a botanist and a registered professional forester by trade, I guess. And that's what I've been doing for the past decade since college. But yeah, I'm certainly good at critical thinking, and I guess I enjoy getting into some of the nitty-gritty details of various like municipal codes and regulations.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the council at this point for Tristan? Cheryl?
Hi, Tristan. So I was on the planning commission when Tristan came to see us. I thought he did a great job of presenting his case. I think also, you know, as he mentioned earlier, we had a kind of a prolonged discussion about after the fact permits and the associated kind of fines and things. And the reason I mentioned that is because I think that gave Tristan, you know, even though we apologized for him having to watch us make the sausage, I think it also gave him kind of an insight to how the commission thinks and processes things, and where we need to work on, you know, our rules and our ordinances and things to smooth things out. So I, you know, I felt like I feel like Tristan could make a good addition to the commission based on that experience. So I guess I don't really have any other questions except, yeah, thanks for putting your name in the hat.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Other questions from the council? Okay, at this point, I'm going to bring it out to the public, see if any public has any questions for Tristan. All right, seeing none. Oh,
no, it's Mike. I'm here.
Go ahead.
So, welcome, Tristan. Sounds like you're going to get approved, and we're glad to have you. I really appreciate your frank honesty about your experience. I only had personal experience building when I was on the planning commission, and I learned a lot from my peers and from personal research. And to me, your intention seems true, and if you study the Code of Ethics for Trinidad, which you'll have to take an oath to, and the Brown Act, you're going to be set. So again, I'm happy that you're very honest and forthright about your experience. I think that you'll learn a lot, and you'll be a very valuable community member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, other questions, comments?
I have a comment, and I'm on the Planning Commission, Tristan. This is Diane Stockness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Diane.
Okay. So Tristan, I've been on the Planning Commission for many, many years, almost 8. So will you walk around the community? Will you drive around the community? Will you look at what's going on the streets, at the beach, at the shopping center, look at the vegetation, look at the roads, look at the workers, whether they're construction or whether they are city workers? It's all necessary. And I live right in town, so I can walk around a lot and see what's going on and familiarize myself with the town, the community, the workers, the visitors. We have a lot of tourists, so I'm just asking you if you are willing to be out and about weekly. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I would say I already do that. Even though I live over here on the other side of town, so to speak. I walk downtown to go to the beach and the store many times a week. And I do pay attention to what's going on, who's working on their house, what they're doing, and things like that. And I feel like I walk by your house somewhat frequently. I guess the other thing I will add to that is living on this side of town is different than living down in, I guess what I call down in town. And so I do hope to bring some of that perspective to the council, which I know.
Great, that's great.
Brings, but yeah. So yeah, no, I'm engaged.
Any other comments, questions for Tristan? Sorry, I have to say, Deputy Diane, I'm just so grateful that you bring your perspective to this discussion.
Yes, I'm part of the community, so that's what I'm going to do.
Other questions, comments from the community? All right, thank you for that. Bringing it back to the council. Do we have a motion regarding Tristan's throwing his name in the hat for the Planning Commission? Mr. Grover?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we appoint Tristan Cole to the Planning Commission.
Second that.
We have a first from Grover, a second from West. Mr. Adams.
Okay, we got a first and a second to appoint Tristan Cole to the Trinidad Planning Commission for the remainder of the 2022 year, expiring in December. We'll start with Councilmember Grover.
Aye.
West.
Thank you, and yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Kelly.
Aye.
And Mayor Ladwig.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Welcome, Tristan.
Welcome to the Planning Commission, Tristan. Thank you for your offer of being on the commission, and we look forward to working together.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to item number 7, discussion decision regarding appointment to fill vacancy on the short-term rental advisory committee. Unfortunately, I do have to recuse myself yet again, but I do ask Mr. West to take over.
Fair enough. So looks like we need one person to be on the short-term rental advisory committee, and we have one applicant. So Eli, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Point of order. This is Mike, and I also volunteered for this position, and I believe you got a copy of my volunteer intent, Jack. So there are 2 to be discussed.
Fair enough. I didn't see a second. I'll let Eli. Eli, can you let us some information on this?
Yeah, as far as the town hall, the only applicant that we received was from Dane Henry. And we've had this vacancy for quite a while. So Dan Henry had submitted his intent to us, a letter of interest. And so that's the only one that we've received at the town hall. So Dan is also present here, and we have received the letter of interest from him that's included in the packet. Dan lives in Chico, and he also spends about a third of the year here in town. We have, of course, the precedent with the Planning Commission, where we actually have two people that don't live in the city. And Dan had an STR before, so he is familiar with STRs. He no longer has one, so I think he would be qualified to be a public member of the committee. So I'll just turn it over and see if anyone has any questions, and then turn it over to Dan to make some comments.
Does anybody have any questions for Dan first, or shall we let him go first? What do you think? Ready?
I'll wait until Dan speaks, and then if I have any follow-on questions, I'll raise
That
them.
seems to be the consensus. Go ahead, Dan, if you'd like to.
Thank
if you'd
you.
like to speak, if you can.
Thank you. Yeah, my wife, Connie, and I have owned our home at 80 Scenic Drive since 2012. It was a vacation rental. We had it through Trinidad Retreats. And then shortly after COVID hit, it's always been our plan to take it off or to end vacation rental, and eventually, which we're hoping to move permanently to Trinidad when I retire, which is at age 65 in about 3 years. So our goal is to continue to spend more time there, and it's been a great experience being a owner of a vacation rental, and I feel like I could bring some insight to both folks who have vacation rentals and perhaps neighbors or public that live next to them and all that stuff, and hopefully be a good listener.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. We're going to let members of the council ask you some questions if they'd like. So if somebody has something to ask, now's a chance. Cheryl, did you have something?
I don't. I actually think that sounded like a really good explanation. And so you'll be expecting to live in Trinidad in about 3 years' time?
Yeah, I could make all the if we have live meetings or whatever. It doesn't sound like too many, but I can do that. That's not a big deal. We come in the dead of night and leave in the dead of night when we're over.
Okay. And you're no longer renting the house as an STR, is that correct?
No, we stopped that. I think September of 2020 is when we stopped it.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I was just looking at the makeup of the committee, but
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Jack, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And David, did you want to ask anything?
No, it's pretty cut and dry what that entails being on that committee.
Great. Yeah. As long as you feel that you can make the meetings, that would be my big question, is managing to be here for a meeting, or at least I guess we could do a Zoom part. So if you feel comfortable with that, let's go to the everybody else. Does anybody have any kind of a question that they'd like to ask or a comment?
Is this for the public now?
Yes, it's the public time.
Okay. This is Diane Stockness, and I am the STR Planning Commission liaison. Okay. So I live in town. I don't have an STR. The makeup of the committee is we need somebody that's in this area, and I think Mr. Henry's intentions are very nice and they mean well, but he doesn't live here. So I am absolutely against him being appointed right now. In 3 years, when he's retired, come on over. But right now, we need somebody that lives here, that knows what's going on, because this is our main industry in town, and it is busy all year, maybe 2 months, it's not busy. So I am not in favor of his appointment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Provost.
Thank you. My question had to do with the guidelines on if a STR committee member is a resident within city, does it say you have to be a full-time resident or part-time resident? Is there any guidelines there that say that? So because I really would think that the city would want to have some guidelines set up so that you're following those guidelines. I happen to agree with Ms. Stockness that we have lots of properties within this small area of city of Trinidad, and it is really important to have eyes on the ground regarding the issues come up with these short-term rentals. But my question to the city and the council is, do you have a guideline that says this appointee, this committee member, can live in the city part-time? And if so, then I think you can move forward. If it doesn't say they can live in the city part-time, there's an assumption then, I think, that they live in the city as a full-time resident. The second question I have for City Manager Eli is that I hear that another interested Trinidad resident had submitted an interest. My question is, if that person said they submitted it, where is there a record of that so we can have fair due process? Thank you.
Eli, would you like
Mike Morgan. It's Mike Morgan.
Go ahead, Mike.
I echo the intention of the application and agree with Diane. In 3 years, if he's a resident, it'd be fantastic to have his experience. If he's no longer for this position, as part of this position, renting out an STR or involved in the STR ownership. As far as answering the previous respondent, I have right here a copy of a stamped, received February 28th, 22nd letter where I said I volunteer, and I submitted on 2/28/22 with my name, post office box, and street address. It's the actual letter from February 8th, announcing the vacancy of short-term rental advisory committee, member of the public with no affiliation to the STR industry, not an owner or a manager. I'm fully qualified, and that position is something I would love to do. I spoke to Eli. He also said, sure, you can apply for that because you're not an STR. You have a commercial hotel. And then I spoke to Gabe about it, and he thought it was interesting. So everybody knows about it at Town Hall. I don't know why it wasn't included. I also put copies in each of the council members' boxes. So I know you all got one. And if you'd like to continue this over or open it back up for other applications, I'll resubmit a formal letter and this copy of my February 28th, 2022 received letter. Now, the question I have, Gabe has already posted public comments, and specifically Richard Bruce has submitted the letter, and he asked that it be read in. And I wondered if Gabe's going to read that in or is Eli going to read that in. It's very pertinent to this item. And he asked it to be read in for item number 7. His two concerns seem to be similar to Diane's and mine. The reservations regarding the letter from Mr. Henry that he is not a permanent resident and that it should be a permanent resident that currently lives here, not primarily in Chico, and I would guess would at least need to be registered to vote here in Trinidad. But even that, I think Diane's right. They need to be here and experiencing all of our wonderful facets of STRs that we deal with for decades now. So someone should read this letter in. I'll be happy to do it unless Gabe wants to do it or someone else. But this is from Richard Bruce, and he asked that the following public comments be read in the public record at tonight's council meeting. I hope you'll do that. He is, I guess, the chairman of the SDR Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Well, I think without a letter from Mike, I think we ought to table this. I would like to make sure we get that information in. So I'm going to suggest that we table this and bring it back next month so we can have a letter and do this properly. Eli, does that sound like a good idea to you?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Can I add a couple of things real quick? You mind if I
No, absolutely.
add a couple of things just for clarity? I'll turn on my video. Just so we're all aware, two things. Ms. Provolt brought up a question about the details of the qualifications, if there are any details provided in the resolution that created this STR committee. And if I read it, I'll just read it to you real quick. It says the STR committee will consist of 2 members of the Trinidad community who are not STR owners or STR business representatives. That's as far in detail as it goes. So I think you've got some flexibility there, but there is not any more detail than that, other than whether you live inside or outside the city limits. I think there can be credit given if no one from inside the city limits applies. And then the other thing, Mr. Morgan's right. We've received quite a few submissions, this stack of paperwork from Mr. Morgan over the last month and a half, 2 months. And I was just, when he mentioned that over a moment ago, I went through and I dug through and I did find this letter, which I don't know if you guys can read, but it was basically the letter that was sent out to the town. And then this is what we received back. It says, I volunteer, and it has a signature on it. So that did find its way. It found its way into the city hall, into this with quite a few other submissions. We've been receiving, if not dozens of them on a weekly basis from Mike at times. So I apologize if this thing didn't get circulated, but he did mention he does like to put things in people's mailboxes when he comes into the town hall. So that's probably why it got overlooked, but he is right. He did submit this letter.
Let's bring this to the council.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to tabling it either, because I want to be fair, and it does sound like Mr. Morgan has a good point, and it sounds like he really wants the position too. So if it, it just takes a couple more weeks and everything's straight.
But right.
Good.
Yeah, I concur. I think that
Okay, so what I do suggest is, since we're tabling it and opening it to allow for formal letters, that we'll notice it to the public again, that we will have it on our agenda at the May meeting. If anybody wants to submit a formal letter of interest to be on the committee, we'll accept that.
Thank you. And Danny, we want to thank you very much for the letter. It will still be here, and we'll come back to it next month when we make sure we did things correctly. And
understand.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have one more public comment.
I have not. Okay, that's not a problem. There's still more public comment, but we will do that right now. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What I would like you to do, either Eli or Jack, you need to read the letter from Dick Bruce, because he is the chairman of the SCR committee, and that needs to be read tonight, please.
Was that circulated, Eli? I didn't see that in the.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. And I'm thinking, since we're tabling this until the next meeting, we can actually read it at the next meeting.
Point of order, Eli, that's not correct. It's in the public comments for tonight Gabe gave me the link. Gabe can read it. And in respect for Dick and his effort to get this in tonight's meeting, please just read the letter, and then you can table it for next 2 weeks. And you can go out and try to recruit somebody else to counter me for 2 weeks.
Before we get to that, let's give Ms. Provost a chance to, she has her hand up still. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, I'll look at the minimum qualifications, Council. The minimum qualifications, the position open was left vacant by a member of the public with no affiliation to the STR industry, owner or manager, must reside within the city of Trinidad limits. So this applicant does have a place. My question, does it say they reside in the city of Trinidad full-time or part-time? So I think that, again, that brings to just some clarification of that. So thank you.
And I agree. I think we need to look that over and make sure what that actually says. So we need to look that over and give others a chance. I guess, you're right. Probably Dick sent a letter and we can, do you have that, Gabe?
I do. And we received that from Dick Bruce. At least the timestamp on my email was 5:45 roughly. Yeah. So I was posting that as you guys were, working your way back into open session from closed session. And I threw it up on the website as part of the public comment packet. So, and I think I forwarded it to you guys, but I wouldn't expect you to see it. And we don't promise anyone if they submit after 3 o'clock on a meeting day that it's going to be reviewed. But nonetheless, it did show up. And it is on the website. And then just one last thing, our public notice that went out, the solicitation notice that Ms. Provost was just reading from, it does say must reside within the city limits. But going back to the resolution, basically the charter that created the STR committee, number 3 on committee membership, I think that is actually the document that would supersede the public notice, essentially. The preference has always been given, and I think that's really how this membership is worded. It says the preference will be given to applicants that live inside the city limits, but when necessary, the council may choose to have up to one member that resides outside the city limits. I mean, I think that's pretty clear, and it gives you the discretion to do what you need to do. So, I would just, guide you to that document when you're making your decisions. If you're looking for clarity as to what
I think we've agreed to continue the item. But I guess one question I had, just to clarify for folks, is I think 80 Scenic Drive is within city limits, is it not?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify because we've been talking about in and out of city limits and part-time or full-time residents. To Ms. Provost's point, there isn't anything in that says either that you have to be or don't have to be a full-time resident. But we should potentially get a little more clarity on that. Is someone going to read Dick Bruce's letter into the record then, or do we want to? Sorry, I'm getting tired, so.
Yeah, I think, it came in pretty late. We have another month to look at it, so we can bring that back next month and make sure it's in our packet, because we'll be deciding this next month. So I'll tell Dick that it's going to count.
Okay. So we can do it then.
Okay. One last comment. I think the preference to people that live within the city should be recognized too. Just because
Do we? So I gather we're gonna table this. Eli, do we have to vote, or we just?
Yeah. Yes, we will table it. We'll include in the packet at the next meeting the exact wording from the formation of the committee, where what Gabe was reading from, so that this way it's clear to everybody. So we'll include that, and then we'll include any formal letters we have received. So this way it allows Mike to submit a formal letter of interest.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready to move on. So let's bring Mayor Ladwick back in.
All right, for our final discussion, it is time for council committee assignments. And so counselors, please refer to the packet I'm scrolling, it should be at the very end. There we go. So we have, right now we have an alternate. So anywhere you see either no alternate or Davies or blank, excuse me, we need to have some membership. And then really at this point, I would also ask Mr. Tuttle to look at this list and see if there's anything on this list that you're particularly interested in. You know, because we're on a committee doesn't mean that we have to stay on that committee forever. There is the ability to be, you know, if you're the primary, to be an alternate or to give up a position. So, Mr. Tuttle, do you have any kind of specific from this list, any kind of specific committee JPA that you would like to join?
Trails.
May I add something, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, please do.
You know, one of the things, I don't know, Jack, your timelines, what you can go to. Are you able to go to daytime meetings?
I work from home and I basically create my own schedule. So I can go to daytime meetings. I'm interested in the Trinidad Trail Committee and the Redwood Coast Energy Authority Committee.
And it makes sense with Dave transitioning out of the city council role here in the next month or two for you to, at least this is my recommendation, for you to attend the next RCEA meeting with Mr. Grover and then make the final appointment when that transition happens. Does that make sense for you, Dave, and for you, Jack?
That makes sense.
That's my idea exactly. Just have someone come along and introduce them and see how it goes there.
Okay. And then the Trails Committee, I believe that this needs updating only in that I believe Cheryl, if my memory serves me, Cheryl either took over as the main person for the Trails Committee or the alternate. I can't remember what.
I'm the alt.
Okay.
And yeah, Councilman West is the rep.
Okay.
And over time, I mean, in 3 months or so, I would be willing to absolutely transition the alt. The only reason I wouldn't right now is because I'm doing the signage subcommittee and I just want to finish that work. But I'm happy to relinquish that one.
Go ahead.
I love working with Councilman West.
I don't want Cheryl to leave the Trails Committee, but so Jack, you got to live up to a lot. But that'd be great. Thanks. I also want to note that that the HCOG has Davies as a backup, and I'm not going to be able to make the meeting this month. So I was hoping somebody might step in and want to go to the HCOG meeting. So if there's interest in that.
When is the meeting, Jack?
It's on Thursday, next Thursday. Not this Thursday, but the week after. And it starts at 4:00. It's also Zoom still, as far as I know. I haven't seen what they're actually sent out a flyer. They want us to vote, I think, but I haven't looked at it yet. Just got it. So probably Zoom, but if it's 4:00, and it usually goes 4 to 5:30 usually.
I'm happy to attend in your stead on that.
I would appreciate that. Thank you. I'll let them know.
And send me the information, please.
I will. I'll make sure you get it and I'll get it to you.
Mr. Tuttle, do you have any interest in being the alternate for HCOG?
Yes, I the next 2 Thursdays I have assignments. I work out of the city, but I could be an alternate, sure.
Okay. And I believe Mr. West is pretty consistent in attending those meetings. as an alternate, you may not attend a meeting for months. I mean, it doesn't hurt to go just to learn sort of what the organization is about, but those alternate assignments can be pretty infrequent.
And there's one more entity, the Hazardous Material Response Authority. That's a quarterly meeting, and somebody might want to take that position. I think they just had it though, so that would be a couple months down the road.
Okay.
I don't know if that's on the list. I don't have it right in front of me.
How often do they meet every quarter? What are the hours? You know?
Those meetings are very short, and I think it was last time was like 5 to 5:30 or something. It wasn't a big commitment, and it was at I think the last one I attended was at the firehouse in Eureka, too. But now I think they might be hybrid already or something. They can show up there, but you can figure it out. But yeah, I think they just had it, so it wouldn't even be for 3 more months.
Well, I'm an alternate on that. Maybe I'll move around. I'll move up. Somebody can back up.
All right, and then I could be the alternate then, Jack, for that one.
Would you like to do it, or would you want to be an alternate?
Either way.
Okay.
Either way, but I might ask to. I was going to see if there were any we should take off. So, for example, the Humboldt County Convention and Visitors Bureau, is that a
wow.
I mean, maybe there's some of these that we're attending that we don't need to attend any longer. I just thought maybe I'd throw that out as we can swap around. But anyway, I'm happy to I can do the hazardous waste if you want, Jack.
Okay. I'll let you, and if you can let me know, I'll stay back up. And the Indian Gaming Benefit Committee, I don't know, we still have it on there, but it
says it's inactive, so maybe that's one we can take off.
Eli, do you know anything about that one, or is it?
No, I just know that Richard Klumpus was on there, and he said that that they weren't meeting when he was on there. So I don't know if they still do meet. I don't know if Sherry knows anything about that committee.
And Gabe, maybe you can eliminate that, and we can come back to it if it comes up again.
Yeah, we can do that. I'll update the list.
Yeah, Gabe, I was just going to ask, did you kind of keep track of all of our swaps and deals and wheels and such?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay.
I got most of them written down here, and I might toss the document around to the council once I get it finalized in a day or two, and just to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I think I got it.
Sounds good. Great. Sounds good. That concludes our discussion decision. So thank you very much, counselors, for, I know these are volunteer hours. It makes the hourly rate from our city paycheck not worth talking about, but it's definitely worth doing. So I'm really appreciative of everyone's extra time on task, excuse me, with these other assignments. So with that, that concludes our discussion action items. At this point, I put a call out to future agenda items.
Well, I'd like to keep getting the water updates if we can, where we are in water. And so if that, please have at least an update, if not an item.
And I would like to, and I've mentioned this or at previous meetings, but we've last year we passed an ordinance, I believe it was, regarding overnight parking, and I'd love to get. I know it was held up with the Coastal Commission for their approval on overnight parking in certain areas of the city. So I'd love to get an update on that for the May meeting. And also an update, I know that I believe you said that the Trails Committee was meeting either this week or next. Would love to see some recommendations or an update from the Trails Committee on how the $20,000 set aside by the city for trail maintenance is being discussed and how we can use the money that we've set aside.
And I would like to add, and this might be more June or could be part of the budget discussions, but I'd like to add something about, I guess it would be public security and safety reducing crime, particularly in some of the hot spots around town, like the library and the museum, and what can we do using our existing resources? What other resources can we tap to kind of tamp down those issues that we've been having? And thanks for mentioning the Trail Committee, Mayor Ladwick, because I should have thought of that.
It's nice that all of us keep each other. We all keep each other in thinking about the things that we've been working on.
Yeah, thank you.
And I do know that I just want to let folks know we are planning another sort of meeting with all of our different water engineering and consulting firms just to get an update some that we can bring that to the May meeting. So we will have some real solid updates on how we're going to be spending close to $1 million on various projects.
And I was going to say the Water Advisory Committee too will be able to give updates once we reconvene and so on.
Okay.
Other future agenda items that we just remember, we've got our big budget season coming up. So that's where the city really sets goals through the framework of discussing the city budget. So it's a great time for us to kind of set the goals for the next year that the city works on different efforts. So just kind of keep that in mind that by July 1, we'll have a new budget and we want to have a nice rich discussion. We'll have a separate meeting just for budget and goal planning. All right, seeing no other, yes?
Mayor, I do have a request, and I'd ask you to indulge me for 3 minutes because we were locked out and couldn't call in for the first half hour of the meeting, so we missed the public comment session. But since this is a request for a future agenda item, I think it's appropriate to do it here as well.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so I had sent a letter on April 1st to the city manager, a couple of them, and copied all of y'all on it and city staff about the city moving towards a trial in our litigation against me and my business. And I said that because they've done that, we filed an ethics violation charge against one of the council members. So I'm requesting the council add an agenda item and publicly hear my formally filed allegations and review the evidence at the next City of Trinidad Council meeting per our city's code of ethics. And I'll read a little bit of background for that. Do you know what extortion is? Getting money through force or threats. The city says, settle our litigation against your business for $5,000 or we're going to trial and it'll cost you thousands and thousands more. Well, I can't afford that, not financially and not morally. The city is willing to waste my goodwill, hurt my business, hurt our guests, and waste tens of thousands of dollars on litigation. For what? More money? Every resident should be saying, that's our money. This is over. We want every damn bit of evidence the council has to be made public. We want to hear what happened and why. We want to see how the council wasted our money and hurt our businesses. We want to know everything before one more dime is spent for an attorney's benefit. Accountability should not sound bad. Unless some of the things being done when exposed might make them look bad, why hide anything? Transparency is not political. Why hide information? Well, information is power. Manipulating and hiding information in closed city council sessions, expensive city litigation, and outright council misreporting is certainly not being transparent. Why hide anything? When litigation facts are uncovered, you'll see the truth. If you don't see it, you're either delusional or worse, complicit. I misplaced my faith and trust in our city government. Trust has been broken because they lied. Only transparency and fairness will lead to truth and accountability. Councilman Jack West voluntarily and knowingly misled and obstructed the truth, and this needs to be publicly investigated by this city council. Without reviewing any evidence, the city manager corroborated Councilman Jack West's misreporting and further said he doesn't see it as a violation. That was in a discussion with me. With this now evident prejudicial bias and his being the city council's employee, We are fortunate the city manager does not preside over charges of councilman ethic violations. Appropriately, he should only present them to the public and city council at the next meeting. Thank you.
And I just want to remind the council that we are not allowed to, nor will we discuss open litigation. So that concludes this evening's meeting, and we will see you in May. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.